This man doesn't like this movie. He calls it deeply propagandistic. In his words, the most propagandistic element of Frozen was the transformation of the prince at the beginning of the story, who was a perfectly good guy, into a villain with no character development whatsoever about 3/4 of the way to the ending. When challenged by an interviewer that he was a villain the whole time, he was a wolf in sheep's clothing, Peterson replied, "Well, that's how it turned out in the end, but there was no indication of that at the beginning." He added, "It's certainly possible that I'm wrong about Frozen, although I don't think so." Now, I'm a big fan of this man, and I'm also a big fan of this movie, and I really, really like the way that Jordan Peterson talks about movies and presents these beautiful lectures that analyze them and talk about all of the amazing things you can discover if you look beneath the surface of the movie. And we're probably never going to see a Jordan Peterson analysis of Frozen. And I was surprised by how sad I felt about that. And I really felt that somebody should do it. And then I realized that I'm somebody. So this is my effort to produce a video about Frozen, celebrating all of the wonderful things that I can learn if you look really closely at the movie, bringing in as much of my life experience and my understanding of psychology as I can, particularly the theories of Paul Ekman, who is the world's leading authority on deception. Frozen is very much a movie about people lying to themselves and lying to each other, and I think that the animators demonstrated some amazing skill in terms of showing people what that looks like in its various forms. So, am I mad? Who knows? Let's find out together, and I'll talk about Frozen. The movie opens with these blades stabbing through the ice. It's a surprising image. It's kind of a violent image. You're here to see a friendly Disney movie about a relationship between two women, and the first thing that happens is these blades pierce through the ice, through the heart of the ice. The men are singing a song about how ice is beautiful and dangerous, and they're stabbing the ice and they're cutting it up and they're taking it away. And there's a comment here, I think, about power relationships between men and women, that men sort of have an appreciation that there is beauty and power that does not come from them, and that they try to take it away. And there's an idea that this might be somehow threatening, which is part of the thing. But there's no suggestion that the men are in any way being dishonest when they celebrate the ice either. It's a wonderful, precious, valuable thing, and it has magical properties, as we're going to understand. This part of the story also introduces Kristoff, who is there with the carrot in his hand, and Sven, his loyal reindeer. Disney movies often have women with animal companions. There's a lot of men with animal companions in this movie. Everyone that we're invited to think of as being heroic has an animal companion. And we can see young Kristoff here surrounded by all of the men, and he is an ideal male from the point of view of this movie, and I think from the point of view of what a lot of women end up looking for, as opposed to what they look for when they start out looking for a romantic partner or a loving partner. And there's a bit of a difference between those things, which will be explored later. The first thing that we can see in terms of Kristoff actually doing something is that he's trying to be a scaled down man. So you've got these giant blocks of ice being lifted out by the fully grown men, and he's made a decision that he's going to lift out a smaller block of ice, something that is roughly proportional to what the older men are doing. And a boy is not a scaled down man. He is clumsier, he is less capable, he can't do a smaller version of what a man can do. He can't do what a man can do at all. And that's fine. And it's really important to understand this about children. They're not actually miniature adults. They don't have wisdom and skills and experience, and we can't actually expect from children the things that we want to demand from them. The whole experience of being a child is of wanting to be an adult and trying to be an adult and not getting there. We demand impossible things from children, and they do actually deliver on them over time. But he's not delivering it on it yet, because he's still a child. Speaking of children, here we have, at last, the introduction of Anna, who's lying on top of Elsa. And these are the two main female leads of the movie, and Anna is our hero. What do I mean when I say hero? In an event story, Orson Scott Card has an idea about different kinds of story. He has a thing called the mice quotient. Milieu, idea, character, and event are the four basic stories that Orson Scott Card says that we can tell. A milieu story tells us about a world. What is it like to be in a world like this? So, Brave New World and 1984 are some of the more famous milieu stories. What would it be like to live in a future where the government controls everything? What would it be like to live in a future where people have their fates predestined for them in Brave New World? In some ways, you can think of the Star Trek stories as being milieu stories in terms of what would it be like to live as a citizen of the Federation of Planets. Then you have idea stories. Peter Hamilton writes these interesting stories about the way that different space travel technologies would affect the economy. So he's got one set of stories where travel between stars takes several months, another set of stories where travel between stars takes several years, and another set of stories where travel between planets is effectively instantaneous and people catch trains from one planet to another. And the way that he has thought about how society would change based on these different implementations of space travel makes those things idea stories. Then you have character stories. A character story is a story where a person starts out in a given state and they learn things about the world. Hollywood cottoned on to the idea of a character story when Cat on a Hot Tin Roof was made. It was a play first, but it was a very successful movie. And ever since then, there's been an idea that characters have to have an arc. They have to start somewhere. The character has to change. Contrast this with Captain Kirk, who is a character who doesn't change, really. He's the same guy every time. What happens in an episode of Star Trek is an event. Something is put wrong. Innocents are killed. It's a very popular way of starting off an event story. And the detective story is the classic event story. So, in a detective in a murder mystery, a good or not necessarily a good person, but someone gets murdered, and the detective appears on the scene. And at the end of the story, the detective restores sanity to the universe. They explain what happened. We all now know who the murderer was, why they did it, and how they did it, and everything is back as it should be. And an event story is about putting things back as they should be. So Frozen is mainly an event story, but it's an event story about characters. And so there is some learning that goes on with our characters, but they don't really change in their nature. They don't. The story is much more about is much more told as a metaphor in terms of a magic spell and how that is repaired, as opposed to being a literal character story where people change their feelings about things. Everything happens via events. In an event story, a bad thing happens, a hero takes up the quest to restore the universe, and the universe is restored at the end of the story. So that's a heroic event story anyway. So Anna is the hero of Frozen. She is the one who gets unhappy with the state of the universe and goes on a quest to fix it. The other characters are all important, but Anna is the hero. Here she is anyway, lying on top of Elsa and complaining that the stars are awake, and so I have to be awake, and we have to be awake, and you have to play with me. She's really very demanding. She doesn't stop being demanding at any point. And Elsa's lying underneath her and saying that she doesn't want to play, and it's kind of ambivalent as to how she thinks about things. But we can see here in this second image of Anna and Elsa together that Elsa does want to have some fun, and she wants to have some fun with Anna. And we can see planning face here. There's a sideways look, there's a lopsided smile. That sideways look and lopsided smile are things that we're going to see a lot of in Frozen, and planning face is definitely something to be aware of. And she winds up and dumps Anna onto the floor. So now it's Anna's turn to come up with a plan. She hasn't got what she wanted. She wants something. And eureka! We've got a beautiful expression here of joyous surprise. Eyebrows way up, indicating that something unexpected has happened. Corners of the mouth way up. Huge, genuine smile. Once again, Ekman, if you look at the facial action coding system, which is a very important piece of work that Ekman has done, then you can understand all various things about the anatomy of this smile and the neurology of it, and things like that. So now Anna, not making any attempt whatsoever to hide how devious she's being, asks Elsa, "Do you want to build a snowman?" And Elsa is always in the mood to build a snowman. So they race downstairs into the Great Hall. Elsa knows that they're being naughty. She's the older sister. She's the one who's going to get in trouble when all of this goes wrong. And so she's indicating to Anna that we should be quiet about this. Let's not have our parents find out that we're breaking the rules. However, she's also delighted to have an opportunity to show off her magical skills, and Anna loves it. And they make a snowman. "Hi, I'm Olaf, and I like warm hugs." It's an ideal childhood companion, someone who just wants to be hugged. And they're enjoying Olaf's company, and the game progresses. It progresses to building big piles of snow for Anna to jump from one to the other. She enjoys the soft landings and getting progressively higher on the huge snow piles. And she's not paying attention to Elsa. Anna remains pretty self-absorbed throughout the entire movie, and has a disregard for her own safety that is about to catch up with her as she jumps into space where the hill hasn't appeared yet and Elsa isn't ready to make it. Elsa desperately tries to make a snow pile underneath Anna, misses the shot, and Anna falls to the ground, injured. This is profoundly distressing for Elsa. What worse crime could you possibly commit as an older sister than to strike your sister in the head with your magic powers and knock her unconscious onto the ground? You can see the pain, the anguish in Elsa's face. And you can see the beginnings there of the manifestations of the curse. Anna's hair is turning white. The ice has gotten inside her in some powerful and mysterious way. The magic is never fully explained, which I think allows it to remain magical as opposed to being some sort of technology. And then the parents arrive on the scene, having been called by Elsa's cries for help. And Dad's first thing that he says is, "What have you done, Elsa?" He knows nothing about the situation, but immediately he's demanding an explanation from the eldest child, and the explanation he wants is, "How did you make this go wrong?" It's a thing that I didn't particularly appreciate when I was an eldest child, and it's a thing that I did a lot when I was a parent of two small children. The reality is that the eldest child doesn't have an awareness of the developmental state of the younger child. They regard the younger child as a miniature version of themselves, and the younger child isn't. Between the 5 and the 8-year-old child here, there's a 60% difference in the level of maturity that you can expect, because that's how different they are in terms of experience and ability to deal with things. And so Elsa knew that this was wrong. Elsa knew that she wasn't supposed to be making snowmen in the Great Hall. She wasn't supposed to be doing ice skating. She certainly wasn't supposed to be creating giant things that her irresponsible younger sister was going to jump off and hurt herself. And she knows that too. At the same time, she doesn't quite have the developmental maturity that's required to actually say no to Anna. And so this whole situation is very, very painful. And the idea of Elsa being responsible for the bad things is an idea that is going to continue running through the story, and it's going to have a really serious effect on Elsa, who doesn't really understand what's going on, but does have this instinctive knowledge that what happened was her fault. So we move very quickly to caring for Anna, and you can see how Elsa is not in the picture here. And that's legit. Anna is the one who is about to die, and Elsa is not about to die, and so dealing with Anna and her emergency is the correct priority in this particular moment. But I think that it's a really interesting choice for the animators to show us that no one cares about Elsa right now, and that's going to have an impact that is going to last the entire story. However, Dad is here. Mum is holding Anna, Dad is holding Anna and Mum. He's there to protect the entire family, and he's doing the job of the good father here, saying, we're going to take Anna to the experts in the forest, the love experts, the trolls, and we're going to see what they can do to help. And so the family charges off through the night to visit the trolls, and they charge past Kristoff. Now, Kristoff's appearance early in the story is an interesting storytelling choice, and the reasons for it aren't immediately obvious when you think about it. And I'm going to follow this tangent for a moment. In terms of, we've had an establishment of Kristoff right at the beginning. He's established before Anna and Elsa, and here we get another image of Kristoff. And then we see him being adopted into the troll family during the course of the next scene. And I think that this serves a couple of purposes in terms of storytelling. One is to establish that Kristoff is the same age as Anna and Elsa. He is a peer. He's having a different set of experiences. And as he is adopted into the troll family, we can see that he's got some sort of hurt. Where are his natural parents? Did he get left behind on the... one of the theories about Kristoff is that he was left behind when he fell behind with the ice cutting expedition. But it's really not clear exactly what happened with Kristoff, and it's not exactly very important what happens with Kristoff. We need to know these things about him, but he's not the focus of the story, and we don't need huge amounts of detail. Anyway, the family goes to visit the trolls in the forest, and the trolls are a bit scary, and so once again we can see Anna being held by her mother. Elsa is there, and Dad's aware of Elsa. He's protecting the entire family. He's got an arm around Mum. He's got his hand on Elsa's head. So he is there for everyone, and he is taking that overarching responsibility that is very important for fathers to take. The first thing the troll does is attend to Anna's emergency. Entirely correct in his priorities, but I'm not overly keen on his methods. I'm not qualified exactly when it comes to emergency magical medical care, but we can see through the consequences in the story that removing Anna's memory of all magic is something that doesn't necessarily serve her very well. And we need to talk a bit about what ice magic is, I think, in terms of we've seen that it is beautiful, and we've seen that it is dangerous, and we've been told by the opening song that it's beautiful and it's dangerous. And what happens here at a sort of a mystical level is that Anna's memory, Anna's awareness, her knowledge that the world can be dangerous is being taken away from her. And people need to know that the world is dangerous, because you can't defend yourself against the various dangers of the world if you don't know that it's dangerous. And so what he's doing is addressing the short-term problem and leaving her open to the long-term threat. And that long-term threat is going to take various forms later on. And Anna's response to that threat is going to be quite persistently immature until she confronts Elsa and recognizes the reality of magic and how dangerous it can be. However, the troll's recommendation is to remove all memories of magic, but don't worry, I'll leave the fun. So you can see here that the memory of flying through the air is substituted with a memory of flying through the air on a sled, and that Elsa is pushing the sled. So Anna remains aware of all the beauty and wonder of the world, but is unaware of the danger. And this is what societies tend to do with little girls. This is the way that girls are supposed to be. We not only try to protect them from danger, but we try to protect them from awareness of danger. If you talk to some of my friends who have codes of honor and who have had connections to violent aspects of the world, keeping the women out of the violent aspects of the world is central to that concept of honor, from that sort of perspective. And it's an interesting way of handling things, because on the one hand you can say that you're protecting these beautiful things from being damaged, but on the other hand they are rendered powerless by their lack of understanding of the horrible dangers of the world. Meanwhile, Elsa, who in many ways is Anna's shadow, in a Jungian sense, she's all of the things that Anna doesn't want to be, and the things that Anna is also simultaneously aware that she needs. But Elsa is shown a horrifying image of what might happen as her powers grow stronger. She's assured that her powers will grow stronger, and that fear will be your enemy. You're going to have to be very careful in future, Elsa, the troll says. And he's not wrong, and simultaneously his advice is useless. And once again, I'm unhappy with the way that he's dealing with this magical problem. If you look at the way that magical problems have been dealt with in various societies all around the world, the work of Mircea Eliade is really informative in this respect. You can see that when a person has been touched by magic, and we need to go on another tangent for a moment. How do you know that someone has been touched by magic? You know that someone's been touched by magic when they start having conversations with trees, when they take all of their clothes off and run around in the middle of the snow. You know that they have been touched by magic when they display any symptoms of psychiatric illness or brain injury. And indeed, if you look at the history of the phenomenon of shamanic calling, which is where the spirits choose someone, then often the spirits will choose someone who has had a head injury or a severe illness or a massive traumatic event. And what happens when someone's been chosen by magic is there's an obligation to train that person, to make them useful to society by incorporating their brain difference into something useful. And when you think about the consequences of, if you've raised a child in a tribal environment, so there's 20 people in your tribe, and anthropologists will tell me off for using the word tribe incorrectly, but I'm going to use it because it's convenient. If you have a tribe of 20 people and you raise a child, that's 5% of the resources of your society is going into that child. And if at the age of 15 they start behaving strangely, then that's a massive investment that you've made that you're going to write off if you don't find a way to incorporate them usefully into society. And as we have these larger populations, and as one mentally ill child, it stops being such an overwhelming priority for the whole society, we've lost a lot of the knowledge that we used to have in terms of how to incorporate the mentally ill into society. So what the troll should be doing as a person from a tribe, as a person who has these sorts of connections to nature, is that he should be saying Elsa has to be trained to use her abilities well, But he doesn't actually provide a treatment plan. He provides a diagnosis, he provides a prognosis. This is what's wrong, this is what's going to happen if we don't do anything. And then he doesn't actually provide any guidance in terms of what should be done. So as a professional, I think that the troll really should be referred to his accrediting body, and appropriately disciplinary action should be considered, because there's a real competence gap regarding his understanding of magic and how to deal with a magical emergency. Right. Moving on from that, we can see that Dad takes charge of the situation. So Mum is scared of this horrible news. Anna is blissfully unaware. Elsa is looking to Dad for guidance, and Dad is laying down the law. We will help her. We will keep her power secret, because we can't afford for Anna to be reminded about magic. It would undo all of the treatment. Elsa is going to become a responsible adult. So he's headed in the right direction, but the training aspect is missing from his plan. His plan is a plan based on secrecy and denial and closing the doors. We can see the doors to the palace being closed here, because Elsa is going to be shut out from the world until she learns how to control her powers. The tragic irony being that she won't have the opportunity to learn how to control her powers unless she engages with the world. However, we wouldn't have a story if they didn't have to make these mistakes, so I guess we're going to have to live with them. And they're certainly very realistic shortcomings. These are real responses that people do have to these real types of events. You know, when there's a problem, one of our instinctive things to do is to hide the problem, and if we regard ourselves as the problem, then we will hide ourselves. And so we can see here Elsa, who doesn't want to endanger her sister's life. You know, she's currently regarding herself as having gotten lucky. She nearly killed Anna, but Anna was saved, and the thing that Anna was saved from was Elsa's power. So Elsa is going to protect Anna by closing the door. Anna is blissfully unaware of all of this horrible negative stuff that is obsessing Elsa, and knocks on the door. Do you want to build a snowman? She tries the direct approach. She tries some sneaky approaches, and tries to work out what's going on. How do I fix this? Anna's always taking responsibility in a really admirable way, looking for solutions to the problems that she faces. But Elsa keeps the door closed, and Anna is forced to turn away. Why is Elsa keeping the door closed? Because she's not in control of her powers. Her powers that she was actually controlling quite successfully. If you look at the beginning, she got exactly what she wanted when she was activating her powers. Now that she's trying not to use her powers, now that she is attempting to hide her powers, now that she is attempting to repress that side of herself, it comes leaking out. It comes leaking out in horrifying and dangerous ways. Yeah, or at least, it's not dangerous yet, but you can see here that she didn't intend to freeze the window, and the window got frozen, and she's really unhappy about that, and she feels out of control, and that feeling of being out of control is a really important part of the mental patient experience. It's a terrible feeling to feel unable to control the way that you affect the world, that things are going to happen through you that you didn't intend. It's feeling that you are the monster. But Dad is here, and Dad has a solution in the form of gloves, and a saying, "Conceal it, don't feel it," which is the way that guys tend to respond to their feelings, and the way that we are encouraged to deal with our feelings. And so this idea that that feeling the things is somehow optional, that you don't have to have feelings, it's a false idea, but it's a popular idea. And so he's saying to her, you know, not only do boys not cry, but in this case, future queens don't cry either. You are powerful, and you are not going to have these feelings that you can't afford to have. We're going to put gloves on you. And gloves are a fantastic visual metaphor in this movie. Gloves are the things that people use in this film to separate their feelings from the way that they present themselves to the world. And so you can see here Dad is being completely genuine when he helps his daughter to start becoming a fake. Anna hasn't given up, but she's getting older. There's you can see the proximo-distal principle in Anna's growth here in terms of the way that her body is growing. She started out with a head that was a bit too big for the rest of her body because the head grows much more slowly than the rest of the body, but the rest of the body is starting to catch up with her head. She's not looking like a small child anymore. She's looking like a preteen now. Elsa is also a preteen, and things are getting worse. She is backing away from her parents. She's lost control of her powers here. Dad has come to help, and Elsa is terrified that she's going to hurt him. She's not only so powerful that she can hurt poor little defenseless Anna, she's now powerful enough to hurt big, strong, powerful Dad, and that is horrifying. It is just terrible for her to feel that she is becoming so incredibly dangerous, and she's developing a fear of her own feelings. In many ways, Elsa has got a dissociative disorder forming at this point. She is losing her connection with her family. So you don't have a mental illness unless you're either losing your social connections, or you're failing to take care of yourself, or you're unable to work productively. And she's losing her connection to her family that loves her very much. Losing a connection to an abusive family is not necessarily a bad thing, but losing a connection to this family that loves her and is working to its best ability to care for her in a very active sense. Losing that is a disaster for Elsa, and she wants her family to be happy and safe and secure, and she's starting to form this belief that the way that that is achieved is by cutting herself off from her parents, and it's a terrible, terrible thing, and it's going to have serious consequences. And now Anna is a young adult, and she stopped knocking on the door. She's feeling uncomfortable about not knocking on the door, but she recognizes that her relationship with Elsa is over, which is quite sad. And Elsa is having a good day here. Mum and Dad are planning a trip. They're going to go away. She wants them to come back soon. She doesn't really want to be separated from them, but they promise that they'll be back really, really soon, and she is in the loving embrace of her parents. So it's important to note that, although the dramatic part of her upbringing and her tragedy is full of pain, and the pain can seem unrelenting, that there are very clearly some positives here, and that this warm, friendly embrace is a very genuine thing, and so here we can see that Elsa is part of the adult world in a way that Anna isn't. Anna is just starting to go through her own adolescence, whereas Elsa has been forced to be an adult since a very young age, and she's learning how, and at this moment she has the opportunity to be part of this adult group. However, the parents' trip does not go as planned, and here they are on a boat in the ocean. It's one of the last images in the movie of the ship. It disappears into the waves very soon and is never seen again. And it's interesting that the parents are killed by the ocean. The ocean is a primordial natural force. If you look at one of the more easily recognized great Disney movies, The Lion King, the death of the parent, the death of the father in The Lion King is a major plot development that takes place due to a villain who is being actively evil in the course of killing off the parents. Frozen doesn't treat the death of the parents in that way. It gets treated in about 10 seconds as a consequence of nature. The greatest primordial natural force in the world, the ocean, swallows them and takes them away. And within moments, the curtain comes down on the parents, and it's very clear that they are not going to be in the story for any longer. And taking them out of the story doesn't just mean having them killed, because if you look at Kimber's experience with his dad, then he continues to be a powerful force in the story and even makes appearances and delivers speeches after his death. But these parents are removed not just from life, but also from the story. It's an important part of growing up that you start to have a story that is your own and that is not your parents' story. And so, in many ways, Frozen is a story for people who are moved on from that projection of your parents onto your life and of trying to be your parents. It's a story about how do you leave your parents behind, for good or for ill. And Anna knocks on the door one last time, and Elsa doesn't answer. She never answers, and Anna is miserable. And if you look at Ekman, if you look at Allan Pease's work on body language, you can look at this image and you can say, wow, that girl is unhappy. She is really, really sad. Because a very sad thing has happened. And Anna is at one with her emotions. And on the other side of the door, Elsa is also miserable. She's miserable in her cell, in her private room. She's grieving. She is not sharing her grief with Anna, which is a thing that people do when they're supporting each other through a tremendous loss. Anna is looking to her for support. Elsa is experiencing terrible emotions. She's blasted her room with snow. She has no intention of freezing Anna with her horrible magic powers that she no longer has any guidance for dealing with them. And so she's alone in a prison of her own making. A prison that she believes is necessary. 3 years later. 3 years later, we've got introductions of the rest of the cast of the movie, or almost all of the rest of the cast of the movie. So here we have Kristoff and Sven. Kristoff likes to share with Sven, his friend, but at the same time, he insists on getting his own share. And so there's this constant modeling of a healthy relationship between men that goes on between Kristoff and Sven. It's seen from the point of view of women. It's seen from the point of view of an outsider to this relationship between men. But there's a clue here that a guy who has good guy friends will be generous to them, but he won't let them take everything. Also, guys have a capacity to be a little bit disgusting, and they might actually take a carrot out of a reindeer's mouth and eat it for themselves, which is gross. Girls complain about that aspect of this scene much more than boys do, because boys are a bit gross. Speaking of things that are a bit gross, the Duke of Weselton arrives in town. You can see here a man who is crooked, a man who is reaching out to take things, and you can see his not particularly attractive henchman here as well. We'll be seeing a lot of the Duke of Weselton. Possibly the most relatable image of the movie. We can see Anna, she's having a bad hair day here, lying in bed, drooling out the corner of her mouth. These are the things that every woman does that no woman is particularly keen to admit to. Yeah, and so we establish some sympathy for Anna as a creature who is as flawed as anyone else would ever be, even as she forgets that today is Coronation Day. But then she remembers that today is Coronation Day. And we've got this amazing motion blur as she races through the palace, celebrating the fact that the doors are going to be opened today. This is the promised day. This is the day where she gets to become an adult. Things are really, really exciting, and you can have a fantasy about being a fully grown woman. Have a look at the way that she's draped that curtain around herself to emphasize all of the womanly curves that she wants to have. She's interested in being powerful and seductive, but she's not a fully grown woman yet. Children are not miniature adults. Just because you've met the size requirement for adulthood doesn't necessarily mean that you've got all of your adult stuff going for you just yet. You can still hit yourself in the face with the thing that you've been twirling and have that moment of clumsiness. The fact that we are awkward and stupid and fallible is something that Frozen reminds us of continuously, and it's when you're having your grandest imaginings of the glorious and powerful future that the movie especially delights in reminding us of our fallibility. And certainly in life, I've tended to find that when I'm feeling on top of the world is when I have the most need for some humility, because there tends to be a lesson coming. And here's Anna once again imagining herself as an adult, and looking to stories, looking to art for clues on what it means to be an adult. And so here she is practicing courtship. And a lot of Anna's ideas about romance are very clearly from fairy stories. She believes that she's going to meet a handsome prince who is going to sweep her off her feet, and that they will live happily ever after. It's the story she's been told, and she hasn't got the practical experience to know any different at this time. Meanwhile, Elsa is also aware that the doors are going to be opened. If you look at that face, that's not the face of someone who is looking forward to a grand adventure. That's the face of someone who is terrified of being exposed. Elsa's imposter syndrome is really kicking in here. She believes that she is a fraud, that she's not ready to be queen, that she doesn't know what is going on, and that people are going to see the horrifying truth about her, and that when they see the horrifying truth, they are going to be disgusted with her. And she's not entirely wrong, and she knows that she's not entirely wrong. She's not looking forward to it at all. But she is going to be queen, and here she is practicing with placeholders. Anna was practicing in front of a picture of romance, and Elsa has the example of her father to look up to. I guess I was wrong about him being completely removed from the story, but here she is practicing being her father, looking at his coronation day and praying. Here we have Anna at the gate, desperately ready for them to be opened, and the servants opening the gates. And so much motion blur as she gets out into the street and races through the crowds. She does meet a handsome prince who has a noble steed, and here they are getting to know each other, and doing so in a very courtly and appropriate fashion, until things go wrong and he catches her as she falls towards the end of the boat there. And you can see the horse has got devious plan face on, and he turns out to be the best wingman ever and tips the boat the other way, causing Anna to fall onto Prince Hans. You can see here that they're both a bit apprehensive. Hans is scared that she's going to take things the wrong way. She's scared that she's offended him in some way. There's some genuine awkwardness here. And at the end of the scene, Prince Hans has got quite a happy smile. Now, one of the things that people have talked to me about as I've been preparing to do this video is that if Hans is a liar, then shouldn't he be lying in this scene? Where are the clues to deceit in this scene? And there are no clues to deceit in this scene, because there is no deceit in this scene. He is happy to have met a princess who shows signs of being interested in him. It's a perfectly normal thing to be happy about. And the thing about really good liars, and Hans is a really good liar, he's one of the best liars you will ever see, is that they don't lie all the time. The best thing that a liar can do at any given moment is tell the truth. And really good liars understand that, and they tell the truth almost all the time. And so that's why they're hard to catch, is because they are mostly honest. Here he is, completely honestly looking at this girl and thinking, she's really quite cool. This is a fantastic opportunity for me. That's honest. Doesn't make him a good guy, but he's honest in that scene. The coronation takes place. Elsa is impressed with the gravity of the responsibility that is being placed on her head. And she's not allowed to wear gloves when she picks up the orb and the scepter. And you can see that she's not overly thrilled at the fact that she can't use her concealment technique at this moment. And here they are, frosting up. She's connected with the power of the throne. It is connecting to the power in her. The frost is spreading. So she puts them back on the pillow as quickly as she can and slips the gloves back on, and is terrified that the crowd might have noticed something. Meanwhile, Anna's expression is much more the expression of someone who wants something from the crowd. She's connecting to the world and she's hungry for that experience, and so you can see her eyeing the crowd hungrily, as opposed to Elsa's rather poorly concealed fear. After the coronation, we have the grand ball. Anna is very keen to say hi to the crowd. Elsa is satisfied that she's done her job. The difficult part is over, and now all she needs to do is look stately and regal. She knows how to do that. Anna is here in the presence of Elsa, and you can see her adjusting her hair, which is one of the classic things that body language experts and pickup artists tell you to look for. Now, she's a bit uncomfortable. She wants to look good. Therefore, she's trying to make sure that her hair is straight. Meanwhile, Elsa is pretending not to notice and keeping her eyes firmly fixed forward. But there's a connection between these two, and they rediscover their connection, and they are aware of just how awesome chocolate is. And chocolate is a thing that I don't think that most men really understand. I had an experience that gave me some insight when I was studying Chinese medicine and into sort of various abstract practices. I got my hormones sort of out of balance, and I had this day where I was having really weird stomach cramps and really weird emotions. I was crying about good news. I was crying about things that I knew weren't upsetting at all. It was really quite weird, and I thought, is this what women have been talking about when they describe PMT? Because all of a sudden I'm starting to understand why they make a big deal about it, because if this happened to me every month, I have no idea how I would cope. And then I looked in the cupboard and I saw some chocolate, and I ate a piece of chocolate, and everything was better. Everything was just so much better. And if you haven't had that experience, then you don't know what chocolate is. And these women know what chocolate is. They're both old enough to have desperately needed some chocolate in their lives and have discovered just how powerfully it makes your life better. And they're unified by that experience of sisterhood. And they're delighted by each other's company. But they're in public, and the Duke of Weselton is here. You can see with his lopsided eyebrows and his smile here that he is trying to look humble, but he knows that he's awesome. And he has reasons to believe that he's awesome, because he's got the moves. Unfortunately for him, his moves are not as good as you would think. Certainly not as good as he thinks. And there's a ridiculousness to him that is impossible for him to conceal, even as he is blissfully unaware of just how unattractive he is. This is the thing that happens with guys who are trying too hard. Don't try hard like the Duke of Weselton does. It's unattractive, and the girls will laugh at you. They might put their hands in front of their faces in order to conceal the fact that they are laughing at you, but you need to be careful about how hard you try to impress girls, because your best hope often is that they will find it endearing. They're unlikely to find your hard work as impressive as you thought it was. You can see here that the Duke is dancing, and he's having a great time. He's got all of the moves, and he's treading on Anna's feet, and she's having a rotten time herself, and she's mesmerized by the way that his toupee flaps about, and perplexed when he asks questions. All of a sudden, he's trying to dig out the secrets of the kingdom. And you can see here that his effort to access her secrets is not anywhere near as subtle as he thinks it is. And the response that he gets is kind of a non-event. And so he goes back to dancing, and she's really had enough of this performance, because it is the dumbest thing ever. Yeah. Don't be the Duke of Weselton. Don't try that hard to impress a girl, because it's not going to work. So the sisters are back together, and they have a little bit of a boys are stupid conversation, which is something that girls do. They compare notes about just how ridiculous and stupid the men in their lives are, because the men in their lives are pretty routinely pretty stupid. And Anna reaches out to Elsa and says, "Look at this wonderful connection we have. I really like being connected with you. How about it? Can we be sisters again?" And Elsa remembers just how dangerous that is. If she connects with Anna, if she takes her gloves off and reaches out to her, then she's going to freeze her to death. Do you want to kill your sister? What kind of monster would do that? No, Anna, I'm going to keep you safe. I'm not going to connect with you. But why? I mean, do you tell your sister, "Oh, if I remind you that there's magic, then it will poison you"? Well, no, because in doing that, you would remind her that there is magic. So she can't explain. She just has to withdraw. And so Anna returns to the party and catches up with Hans again. And here they are dancing together. The Duke of Weselton danced in circles around her, but this guy actually dances with her. It's a very important difference. And they go outside, and she's telling him a story. Now, this piece of body language on his part is pretty cool. You can see there that he's got his hands behind his back. So that is a gesture of complete openness and confidence. It projects, I have nothing to be afraid of here. Eric, I couldn't possibly be safer. And he's leaning forward slightly, giving her his full attention. And she's really, really into the story that she's telling. And he's just sort of politely interested in the story. You can see Hans is always very mild, almost always very mild in his expressions. Even here, where Anna has whacked him in the face, and this is one of the really interesting things about when I watched I decided I was going to do this commentary about Frozen, and I started selecting frames that I was going to show, and I started pausing the movie, and I discovered what you're about to see, which is some of the micro-expressions. Animators get taught about Ekman when they're in school these days. It's part of an animation. If you're doing animation subjects at a university, then they will teach you about Ekman. And Ekman is the guy who discovered micro-expressions. And the deal with micro-expressions is that if someone's face changes for less than 1/10 of a second to a different expression and then changes back again. That's what a microexpression is. And microexpressions are the truth leaking out. It's when a person loses control of their face and what they're actually feeling becomes visible. And then they return to a mask. And we're about to see a little bit of microexpression. And because this is all happening in the course of less than a second. So he's smacked. He goes into shock. She goes into a state of concern. She's worked out that she's hit him in the face, and she's not thrilled about that. She's concerned about his reaction. Mouth turning down, eyes turning down. He's not thrilled about having been hit in the face, and he brings his hand up to his face. And one of the things that's amazing about Hans' skill as a liar is that the hand is simultaneously a natural reaction to being hit in the face. I'm going to bring my hand up and to protect my face. And it's also a really useful device for concealing his expression from Anna. Anna is praying now that everything's going to be alright. Is Hans alright? Is my relationship with Hans alright? What's going on here? And now he gets the joke. And he looks down and he has a bit of a laugh. It's not a wide open laugh of sincere laughter, but it's a very polite, you hurt me and that's okay sort of a laugh. You know, it's not the world's most honest laugh, but it's the sort of thing that you might well do if you're actively interested in a girl and she accidentally hits you in the face. It's like, oh, I'm not going to make a big deal out of this, but just kind of try to ignore the pain. They move on from that. And he tells her a story about his life, and she is enthralled, and they're engaged in the story together. And they sing a song about how love is an open door. You can see here a door to the tower being open as they engage with each other. Now, here we have the scene with the first real clue, and it's a very, very subtle micro-expression clue, that Hans is not actually a good guy. You know, because any guy who's interested in a girl is going to forgive her for hitting him in the face, because guys are tough that way, or at least we pretend to be. However, he's singing to her, isn't it great that we finish each other's, and then she interrupts and says sandwiches, and you can see here her malicious delight in subverting, you know, because isn't it great that we finish each other's? He's very clearly going to the word sentences. She comes in with sandwiches because that's not what would be the correct finishing of his sentence. It's a nice little joke. And he closes his eyes and freezes his expression and focuses his efforts on maintaining his composure. I'm not going to let her see how I'm feeling. And then, as she turns away, he works out how to respond. And if you've seen Jordan Peterson's commentary on The Lion King, then you've seen him saying, if someone looks at you like this, then they are a danger to you. And he's absolutely right about this. This expression is on the screen for only 1 or 2 frames. It is a micro-expression. But here he is, coming up with his plan for how he is going to advance his seduction the next bit. He's going to respond with, that's what I was going to say. It's not what he was going to say. It's a lie, but he sells it well. And so it's a very subtle clue that here he is being a predator. The next part of the song is talking about their mental synchronization and how it can only have one explanation, which is true love. And mental synchronization is an amazingly positive and joyful experience that you can have with someone. If you have the experience of being on the same wavelength, if you are finishing each other's sentences, you know, sandwich is optional, but if you're finishing each other's sentences, if you feel like you are one big unit as opposed to being 2 separate people, it's a glorious way to feel. And there's no denying the excitement here, but it can actually have more than one explanation. It's not just due to true love. It could be that the other person understands you really well. And it depends very much on what their intentions are as to the impact that understanding is going to have on you. So Elsa defends herself from the world by preventing people from understanding her. She shuts the door all the time. Anna is open to the world. She's got the door open, and she's not hard to understand. The fact that Hans understands her could be that he's a person who actually understands how to pay attention to people and is willing to play the long game as opposed to the short, incompetent, ridiculous game that the Duke of Weselton plays. They're singing Love is an Open Door, and here's Anna on one side of the door and here's Hans on the other side of the door, and she closes the door on him. What the hell? I mean, here they are. Love is an open door. I'm closing the door on you. This is a paradox, and it's a paradox that confuses and frustrates so many men in so many ways. Because what's going on here, as Anna opens a different door to the one that Hans is expecting to find her behind, is that she's toying with him. She's playing games with him. What's with the game playing, girlfriend? Well, women choose men. Women choose men who are going to be good fathers, who are going to be good parents, who are going to be good husbands. What do you need from a man who is going to be the man that you've chosen? You know, in Western civilized society and many other societies, women only ever get to choose one man. I'm not going to discuss whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it is a fact of the way that our civilization is organized. So if you're only going to choose one man, then you've got to choose well. He's got to be capable. He's got to be able to, I mean, you know, if you're choosing a man 2,000 years ago, then he's got to be a man who can kill the other men that are coming to take you away and be horrible in various ways to you. He's got to be able to deal with predators. He's got to be able to make a contribution to the economics of the household. You know, for most of Western civilization, that means having a job and doing the job well. And so you've got to test him. You've got to find out whether he's capable and confident, and whether he's going to lose his temper when things go wrong and he doesn't get the stuff that he expects. And so here's Anna saying love is an open door, closing the door on him and going somewhere else, finding out whether he's the sort of guy who is going to cotton on to what she's doing. And of course he does. And they use their hands to put heart around the moon. Because what's more romantic than the full moon? It's hearts. And if you make it together through the spontaneous process of a song, then what an amazing and impressive experience that would have to be. Anna is in the foreground, Hans is in the background. Hans likes to be in the background. It's much easier to hide when you're in the background. It's much easier to maintain composure when you're in the background. Leaving aside the fact that he's got 12 older brothers who have pushed him into the background his entire life. I mean, if you were ever going to be motivated to be really good at managing other people's feelings, then having 12 older brothers is likely to do that for you. If you are guaranteed weaker and kind of dumber than the overwhelmingly powerful competition, be good at feelings and make sure that you get those people into the emotional states that you want them in, because that is how you are going to avoid being beaten up every day of your life. Hans has had some hard lessons of his own, but he's not a hero in this story, and the tragic upbringing of Hans is not what we're about. We're about our heroes. Hans proposes marriage. He gets down on one knee, he follows the script, he knows the script really well, and Anna says yes. So, following the script of civilized people, they then approach the surrogate parent. Elsa is the queen and probably has at this point become Anna's legal guardian, so her blessing for the marriage is important. It's not compulsory, but if you're going to be an acceptable member of society, if you're not going to be publicly irresponsible and insulting, then you need to ask for her permission, and she needs to say yes. So here they are, and Hans is quite happy for Anna to take charge here. He's kind of impressed. And Elsa is not impressed. You can't marry someone that you only met today. Anna doesn't understand. This is true love. This is the script. We're following the script. I ask for your blessing. You say yes. And Hans is quite legitimately concerned. There's no dishonesty in Hans in this scene. And Elsa starts to get a feeling that this scene isn't going the way that she wants to. She's got enough wisdom to know that things are going wrong. She hasn't had a difficult conversation with Anna before. She doesn't know how to get it right. And so she looks for a way to do it, but you can tell that she knows that things are going wrong. And Anna doesn't like what's happening here. And Hans can tell that his impending marriage is under threat, and it's under threat because of Elsa, and he's not impressed. And within 5 or 6 frames, Anna is now taking cover behind Hans and insisting that everything happened together, and Hans is a bit surprised. Fair enough. He's a bit surprised, and he's looking to Elsa. He recognizes that Elsa has the power, and that the person that he's going to have to deal with now is Elsa, and he doesn't know what she's going to do next. Elsa draws herself up into a regal pose and makes a proclamation. She lays down the law. And that doesn't go down terribly well. Elsa's an inexperienced parent at this point, and really quite unprepared for the defiance that her younger sister gives her. So she lays down the law harder, and you can see here contempt. So, I don't give a damn about what you say anymore, kids. I'm laying down the law. I have the power here. Except that Anna isn't going to follow Elsa's script. She's tired of this horrible, miserable, isolated experience. She's found what she believes to be true love, and she is not going to have this fakery. She's going to demand honesty, and she's going to take away Elsa's glove, which is probably the most threatening thing that she could have done under the circumstances. Not that she knows that. Elsa loses control, and her ice powers activate, much to her distress. You can see here the overt villains of the piece. The Duke of Wesselton is alarmed. One of his henchmen is angry, and the other henchman is like, I see now. Well, the clever henchman is ready to take Elsa down. He's seen her secret. Elsa escapes from the ballroom, throws open the doors to the outside. The inside life has become unbearable, so she's going to go out into the world. And she really hasn't taken into account the level of scrutiny that she's going to face in the outside world. There's a lot of people out there, and she was kind of looking to be on her own. How do the people react to seeing their queen for the first time in basically forever? They are thrilled. It's our queen. It's her coronation day. This is a day of celebration. We're really glad that you came out into the square. What a delightful surprise. Of course, that's not how she's thinking of it. She's desperate to get away from everyone. She doesn't want to freeze everyone. She doesn't want to be seen as this person with these horrible, uncontrollable magic powers. She's got to get away as fast as she can. And she bumps into the fountain and freezes it into this amazing sculpture. And there's a variety of reactions in the crowd. And I really like the way that you've got different faces here. The guy on the left, you can see there's sort of a nostril flare happening, and so he's not thrilled. He's looking at this thing as if it's unnatural and potentially a bit bad. If you look at the woman furthest on the right, she's looking kind of scared with her clenched, closed mouth and her eyebrows going way up. All of them have got eyebrows way up because they're all surprised. The guy in the middle, the one without the hat, he's looking pretty happy about this whole thing, really. Like, wow, check that out. And so you've got the crowd here, the crowd as a whole doesn't know how to react. It's got a mixture of reactions going on. Wesselton comes out to pursue her, and her powers go off. She doesn't want to be pursued by him. She knows that instinctively that he's not a good guy. She's under an extreme stress, and she blasts him with her ice powers. And he calls her a monster. Once again, look at the henchman who doesn't have a beard, and just how much contempt he has for Elsa. He's always got his shit together, and there's echoes of Hans there in terms of the way that he's just mildly looking at her like, yeah, I've got you figured out. But Wesselton is enraged. He calls her a monster, and now the crowd has a word, and they start responding to that word together. And one of the things that you see a lot in Frozen is parents taking hold of their children and trying to shield them from the world. There's a lot of good and responsible parents in this kingdom who really do want the best for their kids and to protect them from danger. You can see Dad there grabbing his kids and pulling them tight. Elsa escapes across the lake, leaving these beautiful ice patterns on the surface of the lake, but she runs away across the water. And Anna is distressed, and Hans is aware of the things that are going on around Hans is quite a capable guy, and he maintains his situational awareness really well. And what Hans is seeing is the lake as a whole getting frozen, and all of the ships being locked into place by the ice. That's something that's really going to have an impact on the management of the kingdom, and Hans is really very interested in the management of the kingdom. Wesselton is unimpressed with the whole situation and wants to make it clear that he's unimpressed, whilst simultaneously hiding behind his bodyguards. He is a creep. Anna takes charge of the situation, not really expecting to be in charge, but finds herself in charge, and Hans follows her lead. He's very happy being in the background once again. So Anna puts Hans in charge as she goes to look for Elsa. Hans is really quite pleased to be put in charge, as anyone would be. Yes, his whole plan and his intent is to be put in charge of the kingdom, but at the same time, Anna trusts him, and he's really good at understanding what's going on with other people, and he really values her trust because he's not a moron. Thank you very much for trusting me with the kingdom. That's a rather awesome thing for you to do. Meanwhile, Elsa is alone on the mountaintop in the frozen wastes, and she's lost what little she had, and she is really unhappy about that. You can see her arms wrapped around her middle, downcast expression. And she tells herself off. She reminds herself of the lessons that she was being taught, and she repeats the things that her father had been saying to her. Be the good girl. You have to be a good girl. Get it right. But she can't conceal things anymore. The truth is out there. There's no point wearing one glove. She takes off the remaining glove. She's not going to lie to herself that she's able to keep the secret anymore. She's just going to have to let that go. And so she sings the song, Let It Go. And she reminds herself that she has these magical powers, and the magical powers can be pretty. It's a gorgeous little thing that she's got in her hand there. And now that she's not pretending not to have powers, she can look at that and go, yay! And she can remember these moments from her early childhood where she had fun with her powers, and reminds herself of Olaf the snowman that she made. And she can make bigger, beautiful things. And the cold never bothered me anyway, she says. And it's like, screw all of these lies and all of these protections that weren't really doing me any good. I don't need to be protected from the cold. I am the Ice Queen, and so what's the point in a cloak? Let me get rid of these pointless encumbrances. Let me make architecture. I can build things that are beautiful and functional. These powers are awesome. But it comes at a cost. It comes at the cost of the kingdom and that heavy burden, that important burden, that thing that she's been spending her whole life getting ready for, is not compatible with this new reality that she's making for herself. And so there's this moment of sadness and a moment of anger, because she never asked for the kingdom. She never said that she wanted it. She didn't choose the kingdom chose her. Why should she have to be responsible for everybody else? Why should she have to deal with all of that stuff? She transitions through anger, and now she's got a plan. She's going to get rid of this damn thing. It never did her any good in the first place, and she'll be better off without it. And so she throws it away, and you can see throwing it away, the happiness is sort of faded there. What is she losing in the process of throwing away the kingdom? Is that a valuable thing? Is that important somehow? Maybe? Interesting mixed expression that she's got here. Is it pain? Is it anger? Is it all of these things that doesn't quite, what on earth is she feeling? And now she's made a decision through that, and she's decided that what it all means is that she is powerful. That's the meaning she's chosen to have. She's not going to think of herself as a horrible monster anymore. She's going to think of herself as powerful and unstoppable and sexy. We go to a shampoo commercial. I guess personal transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen. But there's another thing that happens with when women are leaving something bad behind. They will often get their hair done in a different style. I'm going to wash that man right out of my hair was the name of a song. Not a particularly good song, but one that you might remember. And so there she is, washing it out of her hair and transforming the color of her hair, transforming her entire look. She's having the whole breakup experience, new hair, new clothes, transformation outward to match the inner transformation that she's feeling. And here she is, powerful, glamorous, sexy, bombshell, striding forth, and it's a great image, and not necessarily the world's sanest image. Is anyone actually unstoppable? Is anyone actually all-powerful? Maybe not. Maybe there's a certain amount of lying that she's doing in order to project this image of being all-powerful. And maybe the reason she looks a little bit crazy in this frame is because she's going a little bit crazy. But here she is, looking out from her new castle that she's just made with her ice powers, and feeling confident and strong and smiling. A lopsided smile. Not necessarily the world's most honest smile. Not necessarily a smile that is true joyfulness, but a smile that has been put on, might be masking something else. And she repeats the line, "The cold never bothered me anyway." And she looks like an evil predator in this shot, because she's made a transformation to being an evil predator. She's one of the lines that she sings towards the end of the song is, "The good girl is gone," and that is not the face of a good girl. That's the face of a wicked girl. And you might think that you want that kind of trouble. That kind of trouble could be very exciting, and certainly it's not a look that is going to put off a lot of men. A lot of men are going to go for that girl, and they're going to get their hearts really badly broken, and she's not going to care. She closes the door. If there was ever a clue that something is going wrong in this scene, it is the fact that it finishes with closing of a door. Love is an open door. This isn't love. This is something else. And we finish with a shot of the amazing castle. A lot of towers and obelisks and things are described as phallic imagery. This doesn't look like phallic imagery to me. It looks like something else. There's a sort of balcony window bit there above the sort of larger opening that could be very difficult to find. Anyway. Anna is on her way to Elsa. She's got her horse, she's got her cloak, she's got all of her stuff, and she is making her way through the wilderness, up the hill, through the forest. Except that things fairly quickly go downhill in a literal and a metaphorical sense. The cloak is gone, the horse is gone, she's in the frozen water at the bottom of the hill, and starting to think that this adventure is not all that it's cracked up to be. But Wandering Oaken's trading post is there, and it is quite literally a light in the darkness. While we're talking about people's expressions, we can see that his expression is not the world's most genuine smile either. It's a bit forced. It's going up a bit too much at the edges, and if you look at his eyebrows, then you might think that he's a bit scared. He is trying to put a smile on a difficult situation, I think. And Anna is here to buy some boots and a cloak because she needs winter gear. Her previous winter gear having had some problems. Kristoff comes in. He's not making a heroic grand entrance, and he's not making a particularly appealing entrance. He looks an awful lot like some sort of abominable snowman, and is about to behave in ways that could be described as abominable. Certainly, Anna is not impressed. Kristoff wants some carrots. Anna is standing in between him and the carrots. He really doesn't give a damn about Anna, he just wants his carrots. But it turns out that he's got some useful information, and so suddenly Anna is interested. And he's not particularly interested in Anna. All she wants from him is the information. He's got his life going on. Now, Kristoff is the personification of ideal masculinity. He's the thing that women should want. And so the question then is, what is it that he's doing in this scene which is ideal masculinity? And the answer is that he's got his own agenda and he's pursuing it. He's not here for Anna. He's here to get his own stuff done, and he's quite honest about the fact that he's got things going on in his life that have got absolutely nothing to do with her. And that's a good thing. That's a really important thing from the point of view of choosing a partner. You need someone who's got something in their lives besides you, because you are not exactly a picnic all the time. And if they've got nothing else going on in their lives, then the day that things go wrong for you is the day that they're not going to have anything to fall back on. They've got to have something of their own. They've got to have a job, among other things, that you can that enables them to make a constructive contribution to society and to bring in some money or some food, or however it is that the local economy works. Kristoff is not the world's most sensitive communicator, and Oaken doesn't take kindly to being called a thief and throws him out, quite literally. Kristoff is not thrilled at being thrown out and has a bit of a complaint about it to Sven, who is very disappointed that there are no carrots. And the two of them retreat to a barn and cheer themselves up. So, by the way, the ideal masculine guy has got some guy friends, and they can cheer him up, and he can interact with them in ways that cheer him up, and he can cheer them up. He's not putting all of the emotional labor, as they call it in progressive land, not all of the emotional labor needs to be done by the woman here. This guy is actually capable of meeting his own emotional needs without her help. He's got an independent existence. He's capable of getting through the world on his own. These are good things. These are the things that are attractive and valuable. So, Anna comes in and understands that he's got information about where Elsa might be and understands that he knows how to travel through the blizzard. So, she wants his help. But he doesn't want to help. And he refuses. Speaking of people that Anna hits and how they react to it, if we remember, Hans responded to being hit with something by concealing his expression and giving a mild-mannered laugh. Kristoff is not really a mild-mannered guy, and you can see him working out that the thing that hit him was a bag, and you can see him working out that the thing that threw the bag was Anna, and he's not happy. And she's a bit scared of the fact that she might have hurt him there, and of exactly what he might do. But she came here for a reason, and she reminds herself of that, and she insists. And he's skeptical. This is not really the behavior that he expected. And he starts working out what's going on. That she's willing to make a contribution in return for what she wants. And he doesn't want to help, but he will. And he can't avoid taking one last shot to put her in her place, which she responds to in dramatic fashion. And realizes that she may have overdone it when she hit him in the head with the carrots, and wants to calm him down, and then realizes that, well, actually it was kind of funny, but maybe he's going to react badly. And you know what? I was right to throw those carrots at you. So I'm going to lay down the law. We leave tonight. And now I'm just going to get out of here as quickly as I can. So she's outside breathing a sigh of relief. And the guys are working out what they're going to do next. And Kristoff is kind of unhappy that his nap that he had planned has been disrupted. But he's not unhappy for long, because he enjoys going for a ride in his sleigh, and Sven the reindeer enjoys pulling the sleigh, and Anna is having a great time because she's never been on a sleigh ride before. And one of the reasons you can tell that she's never been on a sleigh ride before is because she has her boot on the dashboard, and he doesn't like that, and so he cleans the dashboard and accidentally spits in her face, which is an indication of the current level of his relationship skills. He doesn't get out much, he doesn't deal with other humans very much, and so there's an idea here that the ideal man is not necessarily as socially capable as the female hero. Yeah. And then she tells him that the reason Elsa is angry with her is because she was proposing to get married to Hans, who he had met that day. And Kristoff raises a number of really good points here. You know, there's a lot you don't know about someone when you only met them that day, and getting married to someone that you only met that day is a bit irresponsible and a bit dumb. That argument is cut short by the introduction of a new danger, which is that there are wolves in this forest. So we can't have this emotional scene anymore, and we're now transitioning into an action scene. Kristoff is an ideal man once again, and he puts himself in between the wolves and the girl. He is keeping her as separate from the danger as best he can in this very difficult circumstance. And you can see that Anna is helpful. I'll let you go through your own personal copy of Frozen and work out exactly how intentionally helpful she is and how accidentally helpful she is. It's an interesting little exercise in going frame by frame. But she does help. She does hit the the wolf with Kristoff's guitar. And then we see that there's another danger, which is that there is a cliff up ahead, and Anna sees the cliff, tells Sven to get ready to jump, and Kristoff responds to this by saying, "I'm the one that gives Sven orders. You're not the one who bosses him around." So what does that mean in terms of ideal masculine relationships? Shouldn't he be the enlightened one who recognizes that she's given Sven? In a couple of moments he's going to say, "Sven, jump," and what she said to Sven was, "Sven, get ready to jump." So there's not actually any contradiction here. But he's the one with the relationship with Sven. She's the one who's just turned up. She doesn't get to take over his relationships with other men. There's a self-respect thing here, and a respect for relationships thing that Kristoff has grasped much more effectively than Anna has. But that's probably as much analysis as that merits. And so, women and children first, or women and reindeer first. So, Anna rides Sven over the gap while Kristoff is following behind, and just makes it across, and is safe from the wolves now. Things are not looking quite so good for the sled. And he's got this line here: "I just paid it off." Once again, ideal man, pays his debts. Anna then rescues Kristoff with the help of Sven and apologizes to him. She's the one who set the mission. She's the one who made the demands. And he's lost his sled. He's lost his business. He can't deliver ice to people if he doesn't have a sled, and he only just finished paying it off. "I will replace your sled, and you don't have to keep going on this mission with me," she says. And that's cool, That's good, responsible behavior from Anna there. Kristoff, freed from his responsibility and his obligation, has a conversation with Sven and realizes that his interests are still linked with Anna's and that he's going to have to continue on the mission anyway. They talk about what is going to happen in the future, and both of them are feeling pretty skeptical about how well the mission is going and what they're going to do next. But the environment that they're in is quite beautiful, and they appreciate the beauty in this environment, and appreciation of beauty is a very important aspect of this film. There's a redemptive quality to appreciation of beauty that is showcased later on, and we get a break from the misery of the trek by looking at, in this case, stopping to admire the icicles, not so much with the flower smelling through the frozen setting. This is a point where a voice has appeared in the forest, and Anna is entranced with the beauty of everything. And if you look closely at Kristoff's face, he's not so much entranced with the beauty now as looking a bit skeptical, looking a little bit unhappy, trying to work out how threatening this voice in the distance might be. And so there's a useful contrast here between the synchronization between Anna and Hans and the desynchronization between Anna and Kristoff. Kristoff is not synchronized with her. He is busy apprehending the environment, and that's a good thing because it means that between them there's an appreciation of beauty and an appreciation of danger. What it turns out to be is a snowman has appeared on the scene. And remember now that Kristoff is the one who's been actively concerned about what the new thing on the scene is, and Anna is the one who's remained immersed in the beauty. And so when they look at Olaf together, she's the one who overreacts. And so if you think about that, we tend to be unhappy with people who treat us with open skepticism. Why do you doubt me? I know that I'm awesome. If you were a smart person, you would know that I am awesome too. But if you're a new person on the scene, if the person has a reason to be skeptical, they're actually much better off with the person who is openly skeptical than with the person who suddenly and unexpectedly kicks you in the head. Which is what Anna does, because she identifies something and isn't ready for the unknown, doesn't understand the danger in the world. Olaf, on the other hand, is unconcerned about getting kicked in the head. He doesn't mind at all and is very consistently cheerful throughout the entire movie, and he just sort of says hi to Kristoff, who is really not sure how to understand the things that are happening at this stage. He's given a nose and he says, "Hi, I'm Olaf and I like warm hugs." So this is a joyous reunion for Anna, who remembers that Elsa has made a snowman called Olaf before, and that Olaf likes warm hugs. And it leads into and before leading into a song, it leads to this little bit, which is a nice little demonstration of differences between men and women. We shouldn't overstate these differences, of course, but women are interested in emotions and relationships, and boys are interested in things. And so you can see here Anna's engaging with Olaf in an emotional sense, and Kristoff is fascinated with Olaf's arm that he has stolen and is bending back and forth and trying to work out how it works. And these gender differences exist in monkeys that haven't been socialized, and so there is some biological basis for it. But at the same time, I have worked with a number of really good female engineers, so if you want to say that I'm talking about how society should work, then you're wrong. And if I'm making an observation about a common difference that can be observed between most men and most women, then we can start to have a sane conversation about gender differences. Anyway, let's get on with the movie. Olaf has a song to sing about summer. It's a glorious, happy song, and he has always wondered what it would be like to be in a warm environment and to be in the company of other snowmen, although of course they would be sandmen on the beach. And he's kind of oblivious to some of the implications of what summer would mean. And he sings up to this point where he says, "Put me in summer and I'll be a..." And he looks down and he sees something, and the thing that he sees is a bit concerning, and it seems like it might connect with things. And so we can see that Olaf isn't necessarily entirely stupid. "Put me in summer and I'll be a happy snowman," he sings. You can see there that he's making a choice to be happy, and that choosing to be happy isn't necessarily the most enlightened choice. It's not necessarily the choice that leads to self-preservation. And Kristoff says, "I'm going to tell him." And Anna says, "Don't you dare." And so here we have this sort of fairly traditional divide between priorities. The male saying, survival is important, and Anna responding with emotions are important. Both things are important, but I kind of feel that Kristoff has it right here. And when he says somebody's got to tell him, that's a pretty positive response to this existential threat that Olaf is facing if he ever does encounter summer. Meanwhile, back at the castle, they are stockpiling wood and doing what they can to keep people warm. Summer may be a threat to Olaf's survival, but this sudden and unexpected winter is a threat to many other people's survival. Here we can see Hans being very solicitous. What's he concerned about? He's concerned about how this citizen feels about him. He's constantly scanning his environment for feedback. He's not just doing the right thing. He wants to make sure that everyone's reacting to him the way that he wants them to react. If he was a bit more ideal masculine, he might be a little less sensitive to everybody's feelings and a little bit more making sure that blankets get delivered. He might not need to deliver them himself. He might be happy to oversee this work. But he's a very, very savvy politician, and he wants everyone to love him. And she loves him, and he's pleased about that. He's getting what he wants. Meanwhile, of course, Wesselton, who is never happy about anything, is unhappy that Hans is in charge, and Hans has got all of the right responses to that, and puts Wesselton in his place. The only time we see Hans being angry so far is where his power is being threatened, because that's the thing that he cares about the most. This scene is interrupted with the return of Anna's horse, and you can see here, once again, freeze framing this movie, it just shows you some of the most amazing details, but you can see that there the mother with her arms on either side of that child, and in the next few frames she's going to grab that child and sweep them out of the way. This theme of parents pretty consistently being there to protect their children is one of the more interesting things that happens in the background of this movie. So here's Hans with the horse, recognizing the implications. Anna is lost, and he's got his eyes closed. It looks like grief, but he's not quite crying. Once again, Hans's mask never really slips. Then he looks towards the mountains, and he's got a realization that Anna is still out there, and that his duty is to arrange for her rescue. Wesselton isn't buying it, and Wesselton is not at all convinced that Elsa is going to be a good thing, and is convinced that she's a monster. So he sends his henchmen to accompany Prince Hans and to do what needs to be done. Meanwhile, Anna and Kristoff are talking about what's going to happen when they meet up with Elsa, and she's saying that she's going to talk to her sister and everything will be fine because Elsa would never hurt her. And Kristoff isn't so sure. Olaf is extremely optimistic and completely confident that everything's going to be absolutely fine. But there are some clues that Olaf is not a particularly good judge of risk. "Oh, I've been impaled," he says, cheerfully. And I think at this point, where we're half an hour into the movie and almost 2 hours into the commentary, it's probably a good time for everybody to take a little bit of a break before we move into the next chapter of the story. And hope that this has been interesting. I'm really desperately hoping that someone gets some value out of this, and hopefully, if you have questions or you think that I'm wrong, then if we can make this a two-way street somehow, then I'd be really thrilled to have people engage. So here endeth part 1.